Hey everybody, welcome back. This is another helmet, Stormtrooper helmet that I worked on a few years ago. This is a Sandtrooper helmet, and this particular helmet is based not just on Stormtroopers in general, but it's actually based on one specific Stormtrooper, and he's called the Stop That Ship Trooper. So I kind of explained a little bit of the history of the Stormtrooper helmets a while back, but this particular helmet is also an ATA helmet, but this one was made out of styrene. This was way back, probably about 5, 6 years ago when ATA was still making helmets in styrene. And I didn't mind it. It's very lightweight, but it's definitely a little bit thinner, a little bit softer, maybe not quite as resilient as ABS plastic in terms of durability for trooping, but it's served me well. And I spent a bunch of time trying to make this helmet a little bit more accurate than sort of my regular Stormtrooper trooping helmet. So some differences are, but it is a stunt helmet, and sort of going back into the history books, the original stunt helmets were actually formed in HDPE, which is high density polyurethane. And in actuality, it was sort of made out of this olive green, sort of tan colored plastic. And then what they did was they painted it white. And the reason why they used that was they had a hard time, with all these sort of nooks and crannies and details and how detailed the helmet was, especially trying to pull the cap and back in one piece. They thought that using high density polyurethane would be a little bit easier in terms of flexibility and getting it off the forming buck. And then they would paint them white. But what happened over the course of production is you get a lot of chips and dents and things, and the helmets would sort of look a little bit more worn and damaged as production went along. And the first Stormtrooper helmets and full sets of armor that you sort of were made for the film were the Sandtroopers that you saw on Tatooine, and so they've kind of gotten worn a little bit more. One of the original helmets, the Move Along helmet, was found in a garbage bin after the production had wrapped because someone had just thrown it away and taken some parts off of it, and many years later it sold at auction. So people that build the Sandtrooper helmets really like all the small nuances and details that go into them. So aside from me building this as a stunt helmet, I'll go into some of the details. It's different from the regular Stormtrooper helmet in that it doesn't have any of the lines here painted in on some of the details. This particular helmet has a little bit more of a Joker hook mouth. That's kind of what they call that detail there. So the gray is just painted a little bit longer. And then the rest of it is more just weathering and detailing. So what some people have done is gone and actually try and replicate the original HDPE helmets by forming them in that sort of olive tan plastic, or painting them first that color, that tan color, and then masking off all these little areas and painting them white. At the time, I didn't have access to anything like that, but I did have this styrene kit, and I wanted to make a Sandtrooper. So what I did was I actually polished the helmet white, and then what I did was I added in all these tan accents myself after the fact with just a paintbrush. And what I did was I did a little bit of a trick, just an old illustrator's trick, which is doing a very thin, not so much an outline, but just accenting the top areas of each of these indents. And that's to try to make it look like that the white's got a bit of a thickness to it, and that it's casting a little bit of a shadow. Even times when people got the tan helmet and they're masking them and painting them white, it's not like the white paint is so thick that it's actually revealing that thickness. So I thought, well, from a distance of about 1.5 feet away, you can't really tell, and it actually does look like these are sort of indentations. Another thing I did to replicate some of the marks that they had on the original helmet, there was actually all these little bumps on it, and they turned out to be paint marks because it was either sort of very hastily painted. I think the rumor was that the person that fabricated the helmets had access to a car repair or automotive painting equipment, so the stuff was sort of very hastily painted and very thickly laid on. Obviously, it was a film production, and you're only going to see these things for a few seconds, so you'd get all these sort of paint drips pooling in areas. And so I replicated that by actually heating up the plastic, masking it with sort of like a few pieces of metal just to shield it. And then I took a small piece of aluminum where I'd kind of cut out little scoops, placed it on top, and then pushed the plastic forward from behind. And that yielded the bumps in kind of the right places that I wanted to have them be. So, and there's some more back here. So there's another one right there. So I wanted to make sure that those details were retained. I've gone so far as using a Dremel to kind of scribe in the cracks and scratches in some of the spots where the helmet was damaged for the Stop That Ship Trooper. And there's another paint run on this side. And by the way, the Stop That Ship Trooper is, you only see him in a few scenes. He's got an orange pauldron, and he meets Gurinden outside of Docking Bay 94, and he says, "Oh, all right, man, load your weapons." And he's got that big T-21 blaster. So that's, you'll see my costume in a separate video, but that is very much specifically what this helmet is based on. And then all the weathering. I've added all the weathering, tried to be very, very accurate in making the weathering consistent with the original helmet, including all these sort of drips here. It's almost like they'd had like a paint run and then the weathering settled in around that. And then all the weathering that's sort of caught in these areas and the chip marks here, revealing the tan underneath, is, I think, quite similar to the original Stop That Ship Trooper. So still a great helmet to troop with. I still wear it all the time. But hope you appreciate the kind of detail and stuff that went into it. And it's not that tough to do yourself. I've put up a few tutorials in my prop and costume tutorial video section playlist that you can check out. And those are the same techniques that I used here to paint this helmet. One detail I forgot to add was the tube stripes were also specifically based on the Stop That Ship Trooper as well too. So painstakingly went through photos and screenshots and figure out what the measurements for the tube stripes were, created a graphic for them, and then hand cut them out of vinyl and then airbrush them in. So all the sort of little bits that have sort of bled out or scratched off, again, very similar to that original helmet. Along with this higher brow too. You'll see that on some of the original stunt helmets. Anyways, I hope you enjoy that, and please subscribe to my YouTube page. Thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Bye.